Right now in America, nearly 1 in 5 people driving off a dealership lot in a new car is signing up for a payment over $1,000 a month. Not the people buying Ferraris, regular people. The average new car payment is already around $745 to $749, and only about 10% of new car payments are under $400, while 17.6% are over $1,000. On top of that, more than 22.4% of buyers are signing up for 84-month loans. That's 7 years of payments on something that starts losing value the second you drive it home. The average amount financed is about $42,388, with an average down payment of just $6,433, which means people are borrowing more, putting less down, and stretching it out longer than ever. This isn't just cars got expensive. This is we quietly walked into financial handcuffs and called it normal. Let me put a face to this. Imagine a couple, Jason and Mia. They make around $115,000 a year together. Not rich, not poor, what most people would call doing all right. They walk into a dealership just to look because Jason's truck is getting older, and Mia wants something safer for the kids. They tell the salesperson, "We're trying to keep it around $600 a month." The salesperson smiles, nods, and immediately walks them to vehicles that sticker well above that, because the real game isn't the price, it's the payment. After a test drive in a nicer trim with the big screen, leather interior, and the safety package, $600 becomes $800. Then, when they see the numbers, $800 becomes, well, it's only $150 more a month for the model we really like. By the time you add tax, fees, and roll their old loan in, they're staring at a payment just under $1,000. But the salesperson stretches the term to 84 months, sprinkles in, "It's only a little more per month," and suddenly, what should have been a hard no becomes, "We can make that work." They don't walk out feeling scammed. They walk out feeling like they got approved, like they were blessed to get that car. That's how this happens. Zoom out from Jason and Mia and look at the bigger picture. The average new car price crossed $50,000 for the first time in September 2025, after hovering around $48,700 to $48,800 earlier in the year. We are literally at a place where people are financing roughly an entire year's worth of median household income just to have something to drive. Meanwhile, the average car loan isn't based on a big pile of cash down. It's based on stretching as much as possible. With an average amount financed of $42,388 and an average down payment of $6,433, most people are going in with very little equity and a whole lot of monthly commitment. It's like we took mortgages, shrunk them into metal, added wheels, and called it a lifestyle. Now mix in interest rates. For years, automakers used 0% financing as a marketing cheat code. Sign and drive, no interest. Those days are basically gone. The average interest rate on new car loans now sits around 7.2%, and for used cars, it's closer to 12%. True 0% financing has shrunk to less than 0.9% of all loans. It might as well be a unicorn. So picture this. You're paying more for the car itself, you're financing more of that price, and you're being charged a lot more in interest on top of it. And those longer terms, 72 months, 84 months, make it look affordable in the moment, but massively more expensive over time. The dealer doesn't have to say, "You're buying a $50,000 truck at 7% interest for 7 years. They just say, "You're approved at $989 a month." The story is designed to keep you focused on the month and blind to the lifetime. This is where negative equity shows up like a villain in the second act. In the second quarter of 2025, 26.6% of trade-ins on new purchases had negative equity, with the average person being $6,754 underwater. That means more than 1 out of every 4 people walking into a dealership didn't actually own the car they thought they were trading. They owed the bank more than the car was worth. About 32.6% of those folks were between $5,000 and $10,000 in the hole, and 23.4% were over $10,000 underwater. Think about that. You could walk into a dealership owing 10 grand more than your car is worth, and the solution offered to you isn't, "Let's help you unwind that." It's, "No worries, we'll just roll it into the new loan." This is how people end up with the average payment for those who rolled negative equity into a new deal, sitting at $915 a month. And that's before insurance, gas, and maintenance. Let's go back to Jason and Mia. Their current SUV is worth $20,000 as a trade, but they still owe $27,000 on it because they financed it long-term with a small down payment and changed cars too quickly. That's $7,000 of negative equity. The dealer says, "We'll pay off your old loan." And that sounds nice, but here's what it actually means. They take that $7,000, glue it to the new truck loan, and now Jason and Mia aren't financing just the $50,000 truck. They're financing $57,000. They leave thinking their old problem disappeared. It didn't. It just got dressed up with a fresh warranty and a new car smell. And because the loan is so big, the payment has to live in that $900 to $1,000 range. They've just turned transportation into a long-term wealth drain. The dangerous part is how normal this all feels right now. A $1,000 car payment used to be something you'd hear and say, "That's crazy." Now it's something your coworker mentions casually at lunch, and nobody even flinches. These aren't all luxury cars. These are trucks that drive to construction sites, SUVs that take kids to daycare, crossovers that sit in grocery store parking lots. Somewhere along the way, we stopped asking, "What does this car cost?" and started asking only, "Can I afford the payment?" That shift is subtle, but it's massive. You will treat a $1,000 monthly payment very differently than you'll treat the reality that you're shelling out $84,000 over 7 years for something that's going down in value the whole time. Here's why that mindset is so powerful. Psychologically, monthly payments feel small and manageable. It's the same trick used with subscriptions, buy now, pay later, and only $29 a month furniture deals. If I tell you a truck is $57,000, that stings. If I tell you it's $989 a month, your brain immediately goes into budgeting mode. Could I squeeze that in if we cut back over here? If I get that raise? If we put groceries on the card sometimes? Dealers know this. Lenders know this. The whole machine is built around getting you to emotionally say yes to a monthly number, without ever fully confronting what that yes means over the next 84 payments. Now layer income on top of this. Financial planners often say your car payment should be no more than about 15% of your monthly take-home pay for a new car, and 10% or less if it's used or if you really want to build wealth. So for a $1,000 monthly car payment to fit cleanly into that 15% rule, you'd need about $6,700 a month in take-home pay. That's roughly $100,000 to $120,000 in gross household income depending on your taxes. But the median household income in the U.S. is around $83,730. Half of American households are under that number. If you live in Mississippi, where the median income is about $44,966, a $1,000 car payment is over 25% of your gross income before taxes. Even in Maryland, which has the highest median household income at about $94,384, a $1,000 payment is still pushing it. The math is screaming, but the culture is whispering, "You deserve a nice car." Let's make it concrete. Say a household makes $120,000 a year. After taxes and deductions, maybe they bring home around $7,100 a month. On paper, a $1,000 car payment is about 14% of their take-home pay, which looks okay. But that's not the real cost of owning that car. Add full coverage insurance at $190 to $240 a month, gas at $150 to $200, and maybe $100 a month set aside for maintenance and tires. Suddenly, that one vehicle is costing them $1,440 to $1,540 every single month. That's 20 to 22% of their take-home pay being swallowed by one car. If both spouses have similar vehicles and similar loans, double it. $2,000 in payments, $300 to $400 in insurance, $300 to $400 in fuel, $200 in maintenance. Now you're looking at $2,880 to $3,080 every month just for transportation. That's roughly 40 to 43% of their take-home pay going to vehicles before they've paid for housing, food, childcare, student loans, or anything fun. That's not just a car payment, that's a lifestyle tax. And the real killer isn't just the monthly burden, it's the opportunity cost. A $1,000 payment for 7 years is $84,000 out of your life. At the end of that 7-year loan, your car might be worth $20,000 if you've taken care of it and the market is kind. That means you effectively spent around $64,000 just on the privilege of driving that car for 7 years. Now let's flip it. Instead of a $1,000 payment, imagine you bought a reliable used car for a payment of $400 a month. The other $600, you invest that into a diversified portfolio earning an average of 8% a year. Over 7 years, that monthly investing could grow to well over $130,000. So the choice isn't just nice car versus lame car, it's nice car now and broke later later versus less exciting car now and six-figure wealth later. That's the trade-off people are making without realizing it, because the system only ever talks about the monthly number in front of you, not the total wealth behind you. To be fair, there are people who really can afford $1,000 plus car payments without blowing up their financial life. Some older buyers have paid off their homes, built serious retirement savings, and enjoy high and stable income. If your house is paid for, your investments are solid, your emergency fund is full, and you choose to spend $1,000 a month on a luxury car because you genuinely enjoy it, that's a luxury decision made from a position of strength. I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to the younger buyers, the middle-income families, the people still renting, the ones without a proper emergency fund, the ones with credit card balances who are matching the car habits of people a decade or two ahead of them financially and thinking that's just what adulthood looks like now. The uncomfortable truth is this: a lot of people driving around with $1,000 car payments do not have $1,000 car payment income. They have bank-approved income, not wealth-building income. The bank's question is, can you make this payment right now? Your question should be, what does this payment do to my life over the next decade? And when you zoom out like that, it's almost never worth it, because while you're impressing strangers at red lights, you might be quietly pushing back your retirement, erasing your safety margin, and giving up years of financial breathing room. So here's your homework, and I really want you to do it, not just nod along. First, pull up your numbers. Take your total monthly car cost, payment, insurance, gas, and a realistic maintenance estimate. If you have 2 cars, add both. Don't sugarcoat it. Second, divide that total by your monthly take-home pay and write down the percentage. Don't just think, yeah, it's high. Put a real number on it. If you are under 10%, you're in a fantastic spot for building wealth. If you're between 10% and 15%, you're probably okay, but could tighten up. If you're over 20% or even creeping towards 30 to 40%, that's a flashing red light. Third, based on that number, decide what your next move will be. That might mean keeping your current car longer than you planned, aggressively paying down the loan instead of trading in early, or committing that your next car will be cheaper, more modest, used instead of new, with a bigger down payment and a shorter term. You don't have to fix everything this month, but you do have to stop pretending it's just a car payment when it's clearly more than that. I'm Nate. This is Money by Nate, and my goal isn't to judge what you drive. It's to make sure what you drive isn't quietly driving your future off a cliff. Do the homework, run your numbers, and if this hit a nerve, stick around. We'll keep breaking down the money traps everyone else has decided to call normal.